3,055 men are still inside the largest battleship ever built. For 80 years, nobody has gone in after them. No salvage, no recovery, not even a serious attempt. This wasn't some forgotten freighter. The Japanese battleship Yamato was so enormous, so heavily armored, so heavily armed, that when she finally went down, the explosion that killed her was visible from over 100 miles away. Seismographs registered the blast. American pilots circling overhead thought briefly that an atomic bomb had gone off. A ship that famous, that valuable, that historically important, should not still be sitting on the bottom of the East China Sea. And yet she is. So the question is why? Because the answer is not simple. It involves a one-way mission that her own commander called futile before he sailed, a magazine explosion that tore the ship into pieces, over 3,000 men still sealed inside what is left of her. And a final, awkward fact, even today, even with the best deep-water salvage technology on Earth, raising her may simply be impossible. The Yamato was not just the largest battleship ever launched, she was the answer to a question nobody else was asking. Japan in the late 1930s knew a hard truth. The Imperial Navy could never match the United States in raw shipyard output. American factories could turn out destroyers and cruisers and carriers faster than Japan could lay down keels. So Japan made a different bet. Instead of more ships, they would build a few that nothing the Americans had could fight. Construction began in 1937 at the Kure Naval Arsenal in Hiroshima Bay. The dockyard had to be excavated a full meter deeper than its original floor just to fit the hull. New cranes capable of lifting 350 tons of steel in a single load were installed for the project. When the Yamato was finally floated out of dry dock in August of 1940, the Imperial Navy hung canvas screens around the entire perimeter so that crews on passing merchant ships could not see what had been built inside. She displaced almost 72,000 tons fully loaded. No warship before her, and none built since, has been heavier. She was 862 feet long. Her main armament was 9 18.1-inch guns, mounted in 3 triple turrets, the largest naval rifles ever fitted to a ship. Each gun could throw a 3,200-pound shell more than 26 miles. Each of those 3 turrets weighed about 2,700 tons on its own, heavier than most of the destroyers that would sail in formation around her. No Allied battleship of the war carried anything within reach of her firepower. The Yamato was commissioned just after Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. For most of the war that followed, she served as the flagship of the combined fleet. Admiral Yamamoto directed the Battle of Midway from her bridge in June of 1942. The engagement that broke the back of Japanese naval power in the Pacific. The Yamato was present at Midway. She did not fire her main guns. She watched from a safe distance as her own carriers burned. This is the part that stayed with me when I was reading her history. The most powerful battleship ever built spent almost the entire Second World War doing essentially nothing. Japan could not afford to use her. She drank too much fuel. Her loss would have been catastrophic for civilian morale. So she moved between anchorages, polishing her bright work, waiting for the right battle. She fired her main guns at a surface target exactly once in her career, at the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October of 1944, and even then, only briefly. By early 1945, the war was already lost. Japan's carriers were gone. Most of her capital ships were on the seabed. The Yamato sat at anchor at Tokiyama in the inland sea, burning fuel that could not be replaced, waiting for orders that no longer had anywhere to send her. Then, those orders came. American forces landed on Okinawa on April 1st. 1945. A few days into the campaign, Emperor Hirohito was briefed on the army's plan to defend the island. He listened and then asked a single question that would seal the Yamato's fate. He asked where the Navy was. What were they doing? Did the Imperial Navy have no ships left? Under that pressure, the naval staff drew up Operation 10 Go, Operation Heaven 1. The plan was, in the politest possible language, a suicide mission. The Yamato, accompanied by the light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers, would steam south toward Okinawa with only enough fuel for a one-way crossing. Once she arrived, she would deliberately ground herself on the shore and use her main guns as fixed coastal artillery, firing at the American invasion fleet until her shells ran out. The crew, what was left of them, would then go ashore and fight as infantry. Vice Admiral Saiichi It, the officer chosen to lead the operation, refused at first. He called it pointless. Captain Tamechi Hara, commanding the cruiser Yahagi, described the entire plan in private as throwing an egg at a rock. The captains of the formation were not given the full details until April 5th, 2 days before they were to sail. Every one of them carried the order out anyway. The crews were not consulted. The 80 or so men aboard the Yamato who were sick, new, or otherwise unfit were ordered ashore before sailing. 67 naval cadets who had reported aboard only 3 days earlier were put off the ship and sent home. Everyone else stayed. At 4 in the afternoon on April 6, 1945, the Yamato and her escorts left Tokuyama. The depot crews, in a quiet act of conscience, secretly fueled the ships above their official ration. It still was not enough for a return voyage. Everyone on board knew it. American submarines spotted the Japanese force almost immediately as it passed through the Bungo Strait. Contact reports flashed up the chain of command to Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher, commanding Task Force 58, the American fast carrier force operating off Okinawa. Mitcher had 15 carriers under his command and roughly 900 aircraft. Admiral Spruance briefly considered sending a battle line of 6 American battleships north to meet the Yamato in a surface gun duel. He decided against it. The carriers would be enough. On the morning of April 7th, American search planes found the Japanese formation. At 10 o'clock, it ordered a feint to the west, hoping to draw off the attackers. By 11:30, with American spotter planes still in sight, he turned the Yamato back south toward Okinawa. It was the last course she would ever steer. The first wave hit at 12:37 in the afternoon. For the next 2 hours, aircraft from 15 American carriers attacked in continuous rolling waves, Hellcat fighters strafing, Helldivers dropping armor-piercing bombs, Avengers releasing torpedoes from low passes. Roughly 400 American aircraft took part. The Yamato had 6 fighters as air cover. Inside her damage control rooms, her officers made decisions that would haunt the survivors for the rest of their lives. To stop the ship from capsizing, they deliberately counterflooded the starboard engine and boiler rooms. The men working in those compartments were not given time to evacuate. The valves were opened. The compartments filled. Several hundred of the Yamato's own crew drowned at their stations to keep the rest of her upright. By 2:23 in the afternoon, she had taken at least 11 torpedoes and 6 bombs. She was burning from her bow to her stern. She was listing too far to recover. Then the fires reached the forward magazine. The blast sent a column of smoke and debris almost 4 miles into the sky. Pilots in American aircraft circling above filmed it from a distance and at first did not understand what they were looking at. Seismographs picked it up on land. Civilians on the southern Japanese coast, more than 100 miles away, saw the flash and the cloud and assumed something terrible had happened to one of their cities. Of the 3,332 men on board, only about 270 were ever pulled out of the water alive. The Yamato never came within 100 miles of Okinawa. Her wreck was located in August of 1985 by a Japanese expedition operating the submersible Pisces II. She lies on the bottom of the East China Sea, about 180 miles southwest of Kyushu at a depth of around 1,100 feet. She is in two main pieces. The forward section is on her starboard side, with clear torpedo damage along the hull. The stern section is upside down. The three main gun turrets, each weighing nearly 3,000 tons, broke free of the hull during the capsize and are now scattered across the seabed independently. The superstructure lies in a third pile in the middle of the debris field. What survives in total is an enormous shattered field of steel spread across a wide area of dark, cold ocean floor. There is no Yamato to raise. There is only what the magazine left of her. So why has nobody salvaged any of it? The reasons are several, and they compound on each other. The first is depth. 1,100 feet is not unreachable for modern technology. The Titanic is more than 10 times deeper, and the Titanic has been visited many times. But it is deep enough to make any serious salvage operation slow, dangerous, and extremely expensive. It is significantly deeper than most of the wrecks I have covered on this channel. The second is condition. The magazine explosion did not just sink the Yamato, it tore her apart. There is no intact hull to lift. A business consortium based in Kure announced a plan in 2009 to recover the forward main turret specifically and quietly priced the operation in the billions of yen. Nothing came of it. The technical obstacles were simply too large. The third is what she means. In Japan, the Yamato is not a piece of naval history. She is sacred ground. The word Yamato itself was, for centuries, a poetic name for Japan as a whole. The battleship represents something profound in the national memory. A country that sent its greatest single weapon on a mission everyone aboard knew was a death sentence, and the men who sailed her there anyway. In 2015, a small group of Japanese lawmakers began formal hearings on the feasibility of raising the wreck to recover the remains of the dead. The hearings produced reports. The reports produced no action. The political and cultural sensitivity of disturbing the wreck is, by every account I have read, enormous. And there is a final practical point. Even if Japan one day chose to bring her up, and there is genuine disagreement about whether anyone should, no salvage technology currently on Earth can lift 72,000 tons of shattered steel from 1,100 feet of cold, dark water in one operation. Nothing close to it exists. The Yamato is not waiting to be raised. The Yamato cannot be raised. The largest battleship ever built. The most powerful naval guns ever mounted on a warship, sent on a one-way voyage with only enough fuel to reach the destination, never came within 100 miles of it, has been on the bottom of the East China Sea for 80 years now, in pieces, with 3,055 men still inside her.